committed adultery. I did these things.
Don't ask me things like that.
Just a normal kid.
You're a normal kid who killed your parents.
They had been a Hollywood dream couple. Then, a brutal double murder.
Nicole Brown's throat is cut almost ear to ear, and her neck is opened 2 or 3 inches. And Ronald Goldman, his eyes open, and his body is first found.
A world-famous football player runs for his life.
Just tell him I'm all sorry. Sorry to say goodbye to my kids. I'm just gonna leave.
The Hollywood trial of the century.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
A witness with new details.
In hindsight and everything, 20 years later, I think that O.J. Simpson is guilty.
The real story of an American scandal.
It was a crime drama that riveted the country, a story of celebrity and tragedy that even the best of Hollywood's writers could not have scripted. Its ingredients were sex, violence, and race. For almost a year and a half, the O.J. Simpson murder case dominated my professional life. In the next hour, you will relive the case with me as I retrace my steps. We'll be helped by one of the key players, Kato, who was at the center of the O.J. story, and he will join me to share his firsthand knowledge of those involved. He'll tell us, too, the surprising conclusions he has reached after 2 decades. I interviewed Kato at the time. In fact, I interviewed almost everyone involved in the story, with the notable exception of O.J. Simpson himself. O.J. wasn't talking with anyone. We will bring you the up-to-the-minute news on O.J. Simpson.
Well, if you've been following this, there are certainly stunning developments in Los Angeles.
My introduction to the Simpson case began on live television as Hugh Downs and I went on the air for ABC's 2020. A high-profile car chase had gotten underway just minutes before on the freeways of Los Angeles. You were looking at scenes of a chase on a car that it is presumed O.J. Simpson is in. O.J. Simpson, winner of football's Heisman Trophy as a running back, was now running from Los Angeles police in a white Ford Bronco. It was a made-for-television action movie, a fleet of police and news helicopters tracking the Bronco's progress from the sky. It was the evening of June 17th, 1994.
There are about 15 California Highway Patrol cars, as you can see, moving slowly up the freeway. They are in the far lane.
The police were attempting to arrest Simpson for the murders of his former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. Their bodies had been discovered outside Nicole's home in Brentwood. It was a grisly crime scene.
Unlike any that I had ever seen.
Chris Darden, one of the lead prosecutors.
Nicole Brown's throat is cut almost from ear to ear, and her neck is opened 2 or 3 inches. Almost a gallon and a half of blood flowed down the walkway. And Ronald Goldman, his eyes open when his body is first found, with multiple stab wounds and defensive wounds on the palms of his hands.
He was fighting back.
He was fighting to save his life and Nicole's life.
For 4 days, as the families of the victims grieved and buried their dead, investigators pieced together what they learned from physical evidence and witnesses. It was blood work from the crime scene, Simpson's car, and his home that led to the decision to arrest him and led to this chase. Right now, we have with us in our Los Angeles studios live the District Attorney of Los Angeles, Mr. Gil Garcetti. Can you tell us, Mr. Garcetti, was the scientific evidence, the blood,
Yes.
Was that what made you, and what did it show, that blood?
We have the results. We've concluded that's enough evidence to go out and arrest him.
But when the police came to arrest him, O.J. was gone.
As I might add, traffic southbound on the...
With his best friend, former teammate A.C. Cowlings at the wheel, Simpson was on the run. He had taken a loaded pistol with him. Was O.J. Simpson, to your knowledge that day, very depressed, suicidal? There were reports that he had tried to commit suicide before that day?
I can tell you this, that everybody in that room believed, after reading his letter, that only one thing had happened, that he had gone to kill himself.
This letter was written by O.J. today.
At a hastily called press conference, Simpson's longtime friend, Robert Kardashian, reads the letter O.J. had left behind.
First, everyone understand, I had nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. I can't go on, no matter what the outcome. People will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that.
The police share the fear of suicide or other violence because of the gun in Simpson's hand. Homicide detective Tom Lang reaches Simpson by cell phone.
Please, just toss it out. You're scaring everybody, man.
Oh, I'm not going to hurt anybody.
I know you're not going to hurt anybody, but
for me.
I know you're not, man.
I'm just going to go with me.
If we can establish some communication, at least we have that. At least we have talk. Maybe we can prevent him from killing himself or someone else. Just have AC pull over and just toss that gun out and everything's going to be okay. It's going to be better tomorrow.
You can tell him later on today and tomorrow that I was sorry, that I'm sorry that I did this to the police department.
Listen, I think you should tell him yourself. And I don't want to have to tell your kids that. Your kids need you.
I'm very sick about it, my kids. I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to go with Nicole.
Witnesses report seeing Simpson in the back seat of the Bronco, holding the gun to his head. Detective Lang and Robert Kardashian urge him to return home. So does Al Cowlings, who is driving. And then, at last, more than 2 hours after they took flight, the Bronco turns into Simpson Street. Al Cowlings turns himself into the police without much argument. But Simpson stays put in the Bronco, still holding the gun.
I called to him. I asked him to please come speak to me.
Pete Weyerritter, the LAPD's chief negotiator.
I shouted to him numerous times that we will not approach the vehicle. We're not going to hurt you. We're here to help you. And all we're asking is to peaceably have him surrender to us and so that no one would be injured.
Finally, at 8:50 p.m., Simpson puts down the gun and leaves the Bronco. Night has fallen. The surrender is peaceful. O.J. Simpson is taken away in handcuffs to face 2 charges of first-degree murder. This has been a day of dramatic developments, but only the first of many. The struggle for justice in this case will be difficult, surprising, and ugly. At its center, there is O.J. Simpson, the cultivated public image, and the man behind it.
At this time, do you wish to enter a plea guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Who is O.J. Simpson? Stay with us. One reason the O.J. Simpson murder case captured so much attention was the celebrity factor, a story that was catnip for the tabloids and almost unavoidable for the rest of us. It was about people who had everything losing everything. Nicole Brown Simpson, beautiful mother of two. She fell in love at 18, married at 26, and died at 35. Ronald Goldman, in the prime of his life, dying at 25. Ron Goldman was working as a waiter. He was hoping to open a restaurant of his own. At the center of the legal and media storm was the man accused of the murders, O.J. Simpson. His is an all-American success story of coming from behind and not looking back. Orenthal James Simpson grew up in a tough neighborhood of San Francisco. He got his first name from a French actor his mother admired, and his determination from his mother Eunice, who raised him alone. O.J. flirted with gang membership growing up, but in high school, turned his energy and ambition to the football field. His performance on high school and community college teams earned him a scholarship to the University of Southern California.
Non-Cal sprinting halfback O.J. Simpson is good for 10 yards, going out on the 4.
Simpson excelled at USC football, rushing for more than 1,700 yards and 22 touchdowns in his senior year. He won the coveted Heisman Trophy as the most outstanding player in all of college football in 1968. From USC, it was on to the NFL, first with the Buffalo Bills and then the San Francisco 49ers. He played 11 seasons, setting some running records that still stand and earning a spot in the Football Hall of Fame.
My wife, Nicole, who came into my life at what is probably the most difficult time for an athlete at the end of my career.
Simpson parlayed his fame into a lucrative and high-profile post-football career. He moved to the press box as a broadcaster.
So I look for him to run the ball 20, maybe 25 times.
He worked as an actor in both feature films and television.
Now, who did this for you? Love you. I love you too, Nordberg. Kurtz comes up with new ideas to speed up service.
Wasn't that O.J.?
And he worked as an advertising pitchman for just about everything. The money rolled in.
Only Hertz gives you the best of both worlds.
Simpson's personal life, however, was complicated. He gained a reputation as a womanizer, a side of him that strained and then ended his first marriage. You were not quite 19 when you married.
No, I was 18.
18. And Marguerite Thomas was Simpson's high school sweetheart. I talked with her during the trial in early 1995.
He had become a football player, very popular. There was the press. What comes along with the press, there are women, and then one thing leads to another, and it's very difficult to handle at a young age. That hurts. I would lie if I say that it didn't hurt. When there's someone else, it's very painful.
Did Nicole Brown break up your marriage?
She certainly was a part of it.
Nicole Brown, a beautiful nightclub waitress, was 18 when she started dating Simpson. He was 30, married with 3 children. That romance would eventually lead to his divorce and their marriage. Kris Jenner knew both of them well. What was she like? What was he like? What were they like?
They were great as a couple. They were passionate, and they had a lot of chemistry between them. They were always running around, having a good time, but they were obviously very much in love when they first met.
Kris Jenner was one of Nicole's closest friends, and they were both part of a circle of celebrity families with close ties, very close ties.
I want to send my love and thanks
To all my friends.
Remember Robert Kardashian, who read O.J.'s letter the night of the chase? He used to be married to Chris, and together they raised 3 daughters who have become stars of pop culture and reality television. Their show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, has been on the air since 2007. And remember Bruce Jenner, who married Kris after the Kardashian divorce? He is now Caitlyn Jenner. Got all of that?
I don't think people realize the Kardashian, that all started from the O.J. trial, the popularity.
Kato Kaelin had an inside view of this celebrity circle. You may remember Kato as a witness at the O.J. trial, the tenant in Simpson's guest house, the struggling actor who was a friend of both O.J. and Nicole. He became an overnight celebrity after his trial testimony. Kato helped establish a timeline for investigators. He had shared a takeout meal with O.J. the night of the murders. He sat down with me recently to share his recollections.
O.J. Simpson's, he's very much a character out of Shakespeare play. Here's a man who had everything and lost everything and became from a adored athlete to a pariah.
Kato's guest house was behind O.J.'s house on North Rockingham Avenue, roughly 2 miles from Nicole Simpson's home on South Bundy Drive. Nicole and O.J. lived in separate homes after a divorce ended their tempestuous marriage. On the surface, they presented a smiling facade, even to their closest friends.
The only time I really knew that Nicole and O.J. had a problem was the night of New Year's Eve that we all now know about, where he beat her and she called the police.
He's O.J. Simpson. I think you know his record. Could you just send somebody over here? Hey, what is he doing there? He just drove up again. He just drove somebody over? First of all, he broke the back door down to get in. Going nuts. Okay, just stay on the line. Wait a minute. O.J.
The police report said Simpson had beaten Nicole and threatened to kill her. She had multiple bruises. Her face was swollen. She had a black eye. She had hand marks on her neck. The officers who responded said Nicole appeared terrified. O.J.'s story was different when he talked to ESPN's Roy Firestone a few months later.
You know, my wife and I have been together for 12 years. And it really, when I look at it, it really wasn't that big of a fight. It's just that because of it being New Year's Eve, right? Because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, just finished a big party, it got a little loud. But, you know, the day after this was over, you know, we had a fight. We were both guilty. No one was hurt. It was no big deal, and we got on with our life.
What few people knew was that this was not the first time police had been called to the Simpson mansion.
I felt very guilty as a friend that we didn't know. We didn't see through something that was going on. We didn't see her pain. And I didn't know about any other instances. I knew about this one, and she chose not to talk about it.
In their 1992 divorce, Nicole had gained custody of their 2 children, Justin and Sydney. Even after the divorce, she and O.J. would sometimes date, and there was occasional talk of reconciliation. But O.J. was possessive. Was O.J. jealous?
He was very jealous. It took him a while. It took him a while to get used to the fact that she was now dating, and she had every right to go out and date. She was divorced.
But the Simpson children made themselves equally at home in both houses, Nicole's and O.J.'s. Kato would see them often.
Sydney and Justin were fantastic kids.
What was Nicole like?
Nicole, loving mother, loved her kids, Sydney and Justin. And she was also an exercise freak. She loved running every morning with her group of friends.
The women would run the Brentwood neighborhood, sometimes passing the nearby Mezzaluna restaurant where Ron Goldman worked. Ron and Nicole were casual friends. Ron Goldman would become the unheralded victim that night. His family chafed at the neglect. You know, when this first happened, and it was Nicole Simpson and a male companion, your son, a male companion.
A friend, a waiter.
I had several interviews with the Goldman family. This was our first, as the Simpson trial was about to get underway.
I would yelling at the TV, Ron, his name is Ron. I want everybody to know, that he had a family, and that I want everybody to know and feel like they, in some way, have met him, or he's touched their lives the way that he touched ours.
Ron Goldman would die when he came to the Bundy house to return a pair of glasses Nicole's mother had left at his restaurant. After the trial, prosecutor Chris Darden told me his theory of the crime. Describe how you think the murders were done.
I believe that there was some degree of stalking involved. That the perpetrator, whom I believe based on all the evidence is O.J. Simpson, lurked outside Nicole Brown's condo, and that he did something somehow to cause her to come outside. For some reason, she walked down the walkway toward the gate. And while she was doing that, he loomed in the darkness, carrying a big knife. And then he began to cut her, to stab her. And I believe Ronald Goldman saw what was happening to Nicole Brown, and I believe that he intervened.
The case of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson would last 9 months. Both fascinating and frustrating viewers all over the globe. The outcome left many in doubt about whether justice had prevailed. At the time, Kato Kellen's testimony was widely believed to help O.J. Simpson.
If I saw O.J. today, I would say, O.J., did you do it?
And what do you think the answer is?
Oh, what I think he would say, I think he would say absolutely not.
When we come back, the trial of O.J. Simpson, and a key witness looks back with 20/20 hindsight. Some writers have called O.J. Simpson's trial the trial of the century. For me, it was an endurance test because the trial went on for 9 months, but it was fascinating and addictive.
As a shackled O.J. Simpson left his jail cell and headed to court, his attorney said they were confident and ready to present their opening statement.
Millions of Americans shared that fascination. Cable news ratings soared.
Prosecutors avoided the huge crowd of cameras and reporters.
Televising the courtroom proceedings gave a whole new meaning to gavel coverage. But what went on in front of those television cameras was serious business. What was at stake was justice, not only for O.J. Simpson, but for Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Prosecutor Marcia Clark.
On June the 12th, 1994, after a violent relationship in which the defendant beat her, humiliated her, and controlled her, after he took her youth, her freedom, and her self-respect, just as she tried to break free, Orenthal James Simpson took her very life. And in that final and terrible act, Ronald Goldman, an innocent bystander, was viciously and senselessly murdered.
The judge is Lance Ito, highly regarded. The front of the courtroom is packed with legal talent. Marcia Clark and Chris Darden are experienced and successful homicide prosecutors. Across the room, the defense team, dubbed the Dream Team, is led by veteran Robert Shapiro and Johnny Cochran, a formidable courtroom talent.
We are now embarked upon
his search for justice.
The job of the prosecutor is to link Simpson to the murders with the three classic elements of a crime: means, motive, and opportunity. They tackle motive first.
He killed her out of jealousy. He killed her because he couldn't have her. And if he couldn't have her, he didn't want anybody else to have her.
The means of the crime, according to the prosecution, was a knife that was never found and a pair of bloody gloves that were. Remember the gloves, they are important.
The defendant had an hour and 10 minutes of time in which his whereabouts are unaccounted for.
Opportunity. Did Simpson have an opportunity to commit the murders? Yes, say the prosecutors.
So much depends on the testimony of Brian Kato Kalin.
Kato Kalin was key to Clark's opportunity timeline.
Approximately what time was it when you got your food?
9:25, 9:26.
His testimony would bookmark both ends of what the prosecution argued was the time period in which Simpson could commit the crime. Kato remembers that night vividly, 20 years later.
O.J. Simpson came by my door in my guest house, and he knocked on my door, and he said he was going to go out to eat. And we ended up going to McDonald's.
The prosecution's opportunity clock began at 9:36 p.m. when O.J. and Kato returned to Rockingham. Kato went to his bungalow, O.J. to his house. An hour and 10 minutes later, a limousine arrived to take Simpson to the airport. In our recent conversation, Kato offered fresh details of that night. You saw O.J. getting into the limo. Tell us about that.
I was helping pack stuff into the limo because he was going to Chicago. And there was a bag that was ready to be packed, and he said, "Don't touch this bag." And that bag was never found.
A suitcase type bag.
It looked like a backpack.
And now, do you think it may have been the murder weapon?
I don't know what was in there, but something in there enough for O.J. Simpson to say, "Don't touch."
And it never was found.
Never was found.
Opportunity deals with the time. Between 9:36 and 10:53, the defendant's whereabouts are unaccounted for.
The prosecution tries to prove that Simpson used that window of opportunity to commit murder at the Bundy house and then drive back to the Rockingham property in his Bronco. Even more significant, prosecutors say they found Simpson's blood in the Bronco and at both Bundy and Rockingham.
This blood drop that you see here, marked with the item number 112, matches the defendant.
Blood was an important part of the saga of that now famous pair of gloves. The prosecution said one glove was found at the murder scene, the other outside Simpson's Rockingham house.
The glove was on the south side of the residence at Rockingham.
The Rockingham glove showed traces of blood from Nicole and Ron and from Simpson himself. The glove was found by Detective Mark Furman.
This glove was very close in description and color to the glove at the crime scene.
Attorney F. Lee Bailey, another member of Simpson's so-called dream team, attacked Furman's credibility.
You walked there by yourself.
Yes.
Contending that the detective had brought the glove to Rockingham from the Bundy crime scene, that he had the opportunity to do so unobserved.
How long did you spend there before you went back to talk to them?
10, 15 minutes, totally.
It just worked out that you left the house and made your investigation for 15 minutes or more alone.
That's how it worked out.
That's how it worked out.
In response to the defense attack on the glove evidence, prosecutor Chris Darden took a risky gamble.
Your Honor, at this time, the people would ask that Mr. Simpson step forward and try on the glove recovered at Bundy as well as the glove recovered at Rockingham. Your Honor, Mr. Simpson seems to You having a problem placing the glove on his hand? And Mr. Simpson. We ask him to straighten his fingers and extend them into the glove as one normally might put a glove on.
No, I object to this statement by counsel. The gloves at Rockingham and Bundy don't fit. You understand that? Don't fit. And they can never make them fit. Bye. Give us a call tonight.
Darden had rolled the dice and lost, and Detective Mark Furman, a key witness for the prosecutors, would turn into their worst nightmare. He revealed himself as a racist.
I want you to assume that perhaps at some time since 1985 or 6, you addressed a member of the African American race as a nigger. Is it possible that you have forgotten that act on your part?
No, it's not possible.
Are you therefore saying that you have not used that word in the past 10 years, Detective Furman?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, sir.
But it turned out he had. Plenty. In interviews taped by an author, Furman's use of the word was indisputable and damning.
You got 200 niggers that are trying to take the prisoner. You just chase this guy.
When Furman was recalled by the defense, he never even took the stand. He took the fifth. He did so outside the presence of the jury, but the damage was done. As the long trial limped to a close, the defense maneuvered to have Simpson make a statement to the court without taking the witness stand. It was the legal equivalent of a Hail Mary pass, and the prosecution tried to intercept.
Please don't do this, Your Honor. I beg you.
But Orenthal James Simpson got his 1 minute in court. His target was the jury.
So I have confidence, a lot more it seems than Ms. Clark has, of their integrity. And that they will find, as the record stands now, that I did not, could not, and would not have committed this crime. I have 4 kids, 2 kids I haven't seen in a year. They ask me every week, how much longer?
All right.
This trial over. Thank you.
All right.
At last, it was time for the lawyers to wrap it up, to sum it up.
Some people think that because the defendant in this case is a celebrity, that perhaps he is somewhat above the law. And there are some people that think that because Furman is a racist, that we ought to chuck the law out of the window. Well, that's wrong. What we know is the truth, and the truth that we know is that he killed these 2 people.
Ron and Nicole, they're speaking to you. They're telling you who murdered them. And they both are telling you who did it with their hair, their clothes, their bodies, their blood. They tell you he did it.
Be fair. Don't be part of this continuing cover-up. Do the right thing, remembering that if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. That if these messengers have lied to you, you can't trust their message. That this has been a search for truth.
During the course of their arguments, counsels for both sides argued that, quote, the world is watching, unquote. You are reminded that you must not be influenced by mere sentiment, conjecture, or public feeling.
The jurors filed out and then reached a verdict in less than 4 hours of deliberation.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
When they announced it the next morning, that verdict would divide the country. You were shocked. I remember your face. When we come back, Kato Kalin tells us what he finally wants to say about the trial and about his one-time friend, O.J. Simpson.
You asked me, what do you think? And I whispered into your ear, I said, I think they made a mistake.
And we will explore the strong emotions triggered by the jury's swift verdict. The swift verdict from the Simpson jury caught everyone by surprise. The trial had lasted 9 months. The jury came to a decision in less than 4 hours. The lawyers had scattered by then, and Judge Ito delayed announcement of the verdict until the following morning. In his jury instructions, Judge Ito had cautioned the juries that the whole world was watching. And he was right, literally. An estimated 100 million people were following the proceedings on television and radio.
I would caution the audience during the course of the reading of these verdicts to remain calm. Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
Public reaction was divided very much along racial lines, and it was as loud as it was divisive.
Ronald Lyle Goldman, a human being, as charged in count 2.
The verdict was devastating for the Brown and Goldman families. They had followed the trial intently from the beginning, hoping for a very different ending.
I couldn't even cry. I didn't cry. I'm going to continue in my fight against domestic violence, and I'm going to put people like him to justice.
We were together, you and I, in Los Angeles when the verdict of not guilty came out. You were shocked. I remember your face.
I remember that because you asked me, I think off camera, you said, what do you think? And I whispered into your ear, I said, I think they made a mistake.
And you still feel that way?
Yeah, I think they did.
Kato Kalin had been viewed by the defense as a friendly witness. At heart, he wasn't.
I could only say what I knew, and that's what I testified to. My opinion about his guilt is my opinion.
Kato, in your opinion, do you think that O.J. murdered Nicole and Ron Goldman?
In my opinion, yes. I think he's guilty. In hindsight and everything, 20 years later, I think that O.J. Simpson is guilty.
After the initial clamor about the verdict had settled down, I had a chance to reflect with lawyers from both sides.
This verdict was the result of race and celebrity, but the jury, they could go through a case of this complexity and weight that took 9 months to present and tell us that they really meaningfully deliberated? No. No one could possibly believe that.
It was wrong. It was unfair. Ron and Nicole deserved better. The Goldmans and the Browns deserved better.
Did Johnny Cochran play the race card from the bottom of the deck?
He played the race card from the bottom of the deck, from inside his shirt sleeve. He played it as well as anybody I have ever seen it played.
That's the sentiment shared by O.J.'s former defense attorney.
Barbara, my position was always the same, that race would not and should not be a part of this case. I was wrong. Not only did we play the race card, we dealt it from the bottom of the deck. Johnny Cochran was in charge of the overall strategy of presenting the defense that had been done and created earlier on.
Firm. So take all black people now and burn them.
Would you work again on a case with Johnny Cochran?
No.
Would you work on a case again with F. Lee Bailey?
I will not talk to F. Lee Bailey again.
What do you say to a significant number of Americans who feel that O.J. Simpson is guilty?
If you were there, if you heard the evidence that this jury heard, and if you were being open-minded, your verdict would be the same as the jury's.
O.J. Simpson was free. He no longer faced the prospect of life in prison. But he would soon face yet another jury.
The civil case was our only option, and the only punishment is money.
Ron Goldman's family, spearheaded by his father Fred and his sister Kim, went after Simpson in a civil suit, charging him with responsibility for Ron's murder. They won big time. The jury found Simpson culpable and awarded a judgment of $33 million.
Mr. Goldman, what's your reaction? Your reaction?
Wonderful! O.J. Simpson suffered severe financial consequences. He didn't have the $33 million the jury awarded, though, and the Goldmans have had trouble collecting. So far, they have received only a tiny fraction of what is owed them. In the wake of the two trials, Simpson found himself a pariah.
It's wrong for them to be able to get away with that.
You didn't do it. Who did it, and why didn't you find out who did it?
No more endorsements, no more celebrity invitations, or free meals, or front row seats. He was even shunned at some of his favorite golf courses. People would mark him as a murderer. And then in 2008, O.J. Simpson would face new legal problems.
Tonight, O.J. Simpson is being held in isolation from other prisoners at a jail in Las Vegas. He was convicted on Friday of armed robbery and kidnapping.
Simpson was convicted of robbing a dealer of football memorabilia at gunpoint and stealing back mementos and souvenirs that used to belong to him. A hotel camera caught him on tape.
We were just robbed at gunpoint by O.J. Simpson. Can you send police here, please?
Where are you?
What's the name of the room is this? What room is this? 1203. 1203.
We were celebrating.
Simpson tried to appeal his conviction, taking the witness stand to declare his innocence.
It was my stuff. I followed what I thought the law. My lawyer told me you can't break in a guy's room. I didn't break into anybody's room.
Simpson had admitted retrieving the memorabilia, but denied that it was robbery and denied having a gun. The jury didn't believe him.
Guilty.
The sentence was serious jail time, 9 to 33 years. He is in prison now, but not for murder, not for killing Nicole.
Right. And I think him being in prison, I'm not such a believer in karma, but I switched my mind to that because I think karma came back to him. When Nevada convicted him, it almost felt like, hey, LA, this is how you do a trial.
Kato hasn't seen or talked with O.J. in 18 years since the civil trial, but he has no trouble envisioning how his one-time friend might be faring. What do you think it's like for O.J. now to be in prison?
I would think it's, for O.J. to be in prison right now, I think he's got to be the most miserable man in the world. I think he probably misses, he loves golf. He loves people. I mean, I could only imagine that he's in hell.
Hell, in this case, is in the Nevada desert at the Lovelock Correction Center. We'll have a look at O.J.'s future and an update of some of the people involved in the unfolding of tonight's story when we come back. In the 20 years since the murder trial of O.J. Simpson, the lives of those involved have changed considerably. The events of 2 decades ago have left their mark on the survivors in deeply personal ways. A look now at how some of them have moved on.
You a little bit nervous today?
Feel great.
Kato still has some of his boyish looks 20 years later, but his life is very different. I used to call you America's favorite house guest because you lived in the guest house of O.J. Now you own your own home, you have your own business. Tell us about your life.
Yeah, it's good. My goal actually one day in life is to have someone live behind me. So, but yeah, what I'm doing now is really exciting because I started a clothing line, Barbara. It's called Slacker.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Is that autobiographical?
No, but people would call me like, he's the biggest slacker. And I said, take that. And I came up with this product line called Slacker.
With partner Rhonda Shear, Kato is marketing what they call comfort wear for both celebrities and couch potatoes.
I'm Robert Shapiro.
Robert Shapiro is still practicing law, but he is also marketing it.
We put the law on your side.
Shapiro is a partner and pitchman for a legal self-help business.
To share my commitment to excellence to our clients.
Johnny Cochran's law firm thrives in 18 states, but Cochran passed away in 2005 due to a brain tumor. The business still bears his name, but he might appreciate that so does this school, the Johnny Cochran Middle School in Midtown Los Angeles.
It was so terribly painful. I liken it to going through surgery without anesthesia.
Prosecutor Marsha Clark wrote a best-selling book a few years after the trial and no longer practices law. She has a new career on the lecture circuit, writing novels and developing television projects.
The verdict itself was contemptible.
Chris Darden also wrote a successful book about the Simpson case. He left the district attorney's office to open a law practice of his own.
As a family, we received cards and letters and kind messages from people all over the country.
Fred and Kim Goldman work to assist and motivate crime victims, primarily through the Ron Goldman Foundation for Justice.
The justice system, I think, has betrayed a lot of battered women, and I think the justice system needs to change.
Denise Brown and her family have established a foundation to support battered women as a continuing memorial to Nicole. The Simpson children, 5 and 8 years old when their mother was murdered, are all grown up. Justin is 27, Sydney 29. They have each established themselves in the restaurant business.
And the record should reflect that we have now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel and our alternates.
Judge Lance Ito hung up his black robe for the last time on January 4th, 2015, retiring after 28 years on the bench. He teaches at 2 law schools. Shortly after the Simpson trial, Judge Ito stopped replacing the nameplates on his office door. Visitors were taking them as souvenirs.
Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
And the man at the center of it all, O.J. Simpson, now 68 years old, remains in prison. He will be eligible for release on parole sometime in 2017. The O.J. Simpson story continues to be one of tragedy and loss. First, of course, for the parents and siblings of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, and for the Simpson children. Also, however one feels about him, for O.J. Simpson, now in a Nevada prison. Was he guilty of the murders? A criminal jury said no. A civil jury said yes. What is your verdict? For Investigation Discovery, I'm Barbara Walters.
Where do you live? In Toluca Lake.
Who?
Toluca Lake, because I live kind of
Well, not where do you live.
Oh.
What do you live on?
Where do I live on? Financially?
Yeah, financially.
Financially, well, I've got my show, it still airs on Dish Network, called Tailgating with Kato.
Good.
And I have my clothing lines doing.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Slacker.
Slacker.
Kato, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Could you just lean back in the chair, let me sit?
Well, whatever you do.
Thank you. How's that look? Thank you, sir.
Whatever you do, time has stood still.